Arena has really cemented itself as a core part of the League experience this year. It's the first game mode to be made semi-permanent in this way, unless you count TFT, which, for the sake of this video, we do not, but it's also part of something bigger. For years now, Riot has been creating increasingly elaborate game modes as both a way to bring in new players and a method of keeping experienced ones engaged. But with Arena's huge success this year and plans for more down the road, what does this all mean for the future of League? And is there a world where what some League fans really want is just a different game?
Okay guys, before we get into it, I just wanted to thank Anthros for sponsoring this video. If you spend serious hours gaming, you know how much your setup matters, and your chair is a critical part of that. Anthros isn't a typical gaming chair brand. They started in the medical world designing wheelchair cushions that support spinal alignment and reduce pressure. Now they've brought that same expertise to create one of the most advanced ergonomic chairs available. That's exactly why Anthros was chosen as the official chair of ESL and DreamHack, showing that it's a performance tool trusted by top esports professionals. Anthros chairs offer unmatched customizability, using in-depth scientific data to ensure a tailor-made experience that maximizes your comfort and performance. Anthros is so committed to your satisfaction that they even offer a no-risk 60-day trial on their chairs, giving you the chance to truly make sure it's right for you. We've been using the Anthros chair ourselves, and the difference is clear. Premium materials, elite adjustability, and all-day comfort. So if performance matters to you, whether you're grinding ranked or working long hours, check out Anthros using the link in the description and upgrade your setup. Now, back to today's story.
Okay, so very quickly, in case you've been living under a rock, Arena is a game mode that Riot originally implemented back in the summer of 2023 as part of the Soul Fighter event. They revived it in December of that year, then again in the middle of 2024, and now it's back until at least June 2026. In short, it's a skirmish-heavy competitive mode where you face off against other players while collecting roguelike style augments that empower your champion and give you bonuses and combinations you could never achieve on Summoner's Rift. It was originally intended to be something zany and fun with some really broken combinations that would attract casual players, but instead Arena has captured the attention of primarily more competitive ranked players, and Riot has started balancing it with that in mind. We had the chance at MSI to talk to Ezra Lin, who's in charge of League game modes at Riot, and he told us that Riot had been seeing a steady player base for Arena beyond just an initial spike in interest, which is often what we see with these game modes, and that's what's prompted them to make the mode semi-permanent.
Every time we'd iterate, we'd be like, okay, let's find ways to see if we can increase the quality of the game, but also in particular the most recent launch was, let's see if we can find ways to get players to continue to want to play in a way that just felt natural and exciting. So it's like, we had the Fame track, for example, and a bunch of other things like that. Bravery did this as well, just like, when you're playing different characters, when you have other goals, it's a lot more reason to keep playing, and those are the kinds of things that we focused on. And now that we saw that, all of a sudden we see that instead of, by the fourth patch, the player kind of sort of collapsed. What happened was there's a big spike, and then it went down, and then it started to go back up. Especially, certain regions really spiked, some places were really flat, but overall it was like, hey, this is actually enduring, people are really excited about it.
Now in terms of Arena itself, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time here breaking down the gameplay. It's not new, and I'm sure you've either already played it or seen a ton of footage just like everyone else who follows League. But I will say that I think it's a lot of fun. It feels very distinct from ARAM and, actual ranked solo queue, and creates gameplay moments that feel interesting and distinct. From the augments to the different arenas to the guest of honor mechanic, it's not hard to see why the player base has really latched on to Arena.
It was definitely targeted. It was originally it was supposed to be hyper casual, but the way it ended up being designed, just the way that structure ends up being played was again a more competitive experience, and that's okay, right? It's like sometimes we have a target, it misses, but it's still a successful thing. So it was about readapting, figuring out what are the things that are still working about this competitive experience, and what are the things that maybe we don't like about that space. So for example, we removed rank relatively recently because we were like, despite being a competitive experience, ranked in particular is really off-putting to the casual competitive player, the person who's like, I would like to play this, I really like the way I interact with builds and really the way I can go crazy and experience the mode, but ranked is just a little bit too stressful.
Now in general, I think all of this is great for the game. Arena is fun, easy to access, and even if the games can still take 25 to 30 minutes, it feels like way less of a time commitment than a ranked game. It's easy to jump into, plus the forced downtime to think about your build really just makes the experience a bit more chill. Besides which, it's become a way that less experienced players can test out new characters, and that's even true for the best players in the world. Famously, when Chovy came to Canada for MSI a few months ago, he didn't play much solo queue because he wouldn't have had time to grind the ladder beginner to high challenger during such a short stint in the country. Plus, it's NA solo queue, enough said. Instead, to stay sharp, he played Arena, which let him focus on champion mechanics and getting a little bit of extra playtime outside of scrims. That's really interesting, and it's so different from how we've always interacted with things like ARAM, or, if you're as old as me, Dominion, which have never in any way been a stand-in for anything competitive. But I do think that brings us to an interesting question. For as long as we've played League, we've asked ourselves if the game is dying. If a new generation is really going to sink thousands of hours into the game. Basically, what's the future for old school Summoner's Rift League of Legends? And we're not going to go through all the possible answers to that question here today, but game modes are, I think, a sometimes overlooked part of that equation.
Some players might get into League of Legends and be like, I don't really like Summoner's Rift, and then they bounce off, historically. And the goal for something like Arena or other modes like that, ARAM has done this very well, is it says you can still play League characters, you just don't have to play Summoner's Rift. And so some new players will come in and then they'll stick to something else, and then they might end up liking Summoner's Rift as they learn more, they might not. It's just generally the goal is like widening the offerings we have so that when you come into League of Legends, it's not Summoner's Rift or bust. It's here's this breadth of experience that I can play my League characters and I'm really excited to play.
Imagine a world where the future of League isn't just opening the client, complaining on Reddit that it hasn't really changed in years, and then queuing ranked. What if there were several versions of League, many of them competitively balanced, but a little more accessible than Summoner's Rift? For a long time, we've listened to people say the MOBA is an old genre that younger gamers aren't going to grab onto in the same way that we did. And even if plenty of new players do eventually find their way into League, there's obviously some truth to that. It's why Riot is implementing WASD, as we talked about a few weeks ago. It's also part of why you've seen such a push by Riot into arts and culture with huge music projects, a novel, and yes, Arcane. They know they need to pull more people into their ecosystem, and they know the way we play games is changing. So, what if the future of League of Legends isn't really League of Legends? We only have MOBAs in the first place because of mods made for the biggest games of 20 years ago, which were RTSs, StarCraft and Warcraft 3. We got Battle Royales because Fortnite ripped off PUBG, which was a standalone take on an Arma 2 mod, and Fortnite's original gameplay was inspired by Minecraft. Competitive and multiplayer PC games have existed in this cycle for a long time. I don't think anyone would seriously argue that League doesn't have some great minute-to-minute gameplay. The mechanics feel good. The game is fun. That's why we're all still here. But I think it's really interesting to stop and think about whether some other gameplay loop could be the next big wave for these characters and these mechanics. Something different than killing minions and pushing down turrets while we fight over neutral objectives. There's definitely a reason why modes like Earth were so popular back in the day, and why Arena has blown up the way it has too.
Oh no. You have to win. Come on! Give me that shit.
It's even something we've seen in other games like Magic the Gathering. That's a beloved game with great IP that has cycled through drastically different game modes. These days, Commander is the most popular way to play, but for many players, the mode they remember might be Draft, or Standard, or even a cube they love playing with friends. Magic has endured since 1993 because it has iterated tremendously over the course of the past 30 years. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Arena is a lot of fun, but it's not replacing the core game anytime soon, or maybe ever. Right now, League players itching for something else have been getting absolutely tormented by Doom bots that they just made mean this time around. And Riot have told us they have plenty of plans for modes that are just for fun too, things like Brawl or Nexus Blitz. So none of this is happening right away, and it might never. But I think if you look at game modes as possible versions of the future of League of Legends, you'll see there's a lot of possibilities.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.